Hello and welcome. We now return to Ordinary Time, and this Sunday we reach the 10th Sunday in Ordinary Time, where we start working through again St Mark's Gospel. Today's Gospel represents to us a troubling scene. Jesus is accused of being out of his mind by his family and friends, and of being possessed by Beelzebub, by the scribes who have come from Jerusalem. It's a stark reminder that even those closest to Jesus did not always understand or accept his mission. The passage begins by telling us that Jesus has entered a house, but the crowds were so great that he and his disciples could not eat. This speaks of the immense popularity and demand for Jesus' teachings and miracles. Yet, rather than being celebrated, Jesus faces opposition and rejection. His own family, concerned for his well-being, tried to restrain him, thinking he'd gone mad. Meanwhile, the scribes go as far as to think and accuse him of being possessed by the devil and casting out demons by the prince of demons. They refuse to see the true source of Jesus' power and authority. This rejection and misunderstanding of Jesus is not unique to this time. As Pope Francis reminds us, Jesus is often a sign of contradiction. His words and actions lay bare secrets of the human heart, challenging our preconceptions and our comfortable assumptions. When he proclaims the Father's unconditional mercy, it can provoke anger and hostility in those who are unwilling to let go of their pride and their prejudices. Yet, as Pope John Paul II explains, Jesus' battle is not against people, it's against the devil, the enemy of humanity. He does not fight to build power, but to open the floodgates of God's merciful love. Even when faced with rejection, Jesus passed through the midst of those who would stop him and continued on his way. This Gospel passage calls us to reflect on our own response to Jesus. Do we, like his own family, fail to understand the radical nature of his mission? Do we, like the scribes, rashly judge and condemn rather than seeking to discern the true source of his power? Or do we, like the crowds who pressed to hear him, recognize Jesus as the long-awaited Messiah, the one who has come to deliver us from the grip of sin and Satan? Do we welcome him with open hearts, ready to be transformed by his message of mercy and love? As we ponder these questions, let us pray for the grace to be open to the Lord, to see him not as a threat, but as the one who alone can satisfy the deepest longings of our hearts. For as Pope Francis reminds us, when we encounter the Lord in prayer, we are filled with joy, a sign that we are very much on the right path. Let us not be like those who rejected Jesus, but rather let us follow in his footsteps, embracing the way of meekness and humility. For in doing so, we can find true freedom and happiness, the happiness that only he can give. The Gospel passage provides important lessons too about spiritual discernment. Discernment often involves facing misunderstanding and opposition. Authentic discernment can lead us to take paths that others may well not comprehend. Discernment requires perseverance in face of rejection. Despite the opposition he faced, Jesus passes through the midst of those who would stop him and continues on his way. True discernment is not deterred by obstacles, but remains steadfast in following God's will. Discernment has to be rooted in humility, not pride. The scribes' accusation that Jesus was possessed by Beelzebub stemmed from their own pride and unwillingness to recognize the true source of his power. Authentic discernment requires an openness to God's will and not a reliance on our own preoccupations. God bless you all.